Good day to you. This is Martin Kagan. We're going to be looking at an overview of recent um, slide deck and active um, web sheets in regard to both hierarchical and spatial data. And we're going to jump right into it. We're familiar already with the concept, and in terms of trying to see how the system actually absorbs the data is through a simple Excel, CSV, or JSON type file of this type of layout. We have time at the top, which is designated over a period of time. On the graph, we have an index structure, a name, and a description. And obviously, this is populated prior to the launching, and we're going to look at how that propagates in the system itself. So essentially what we do is we look at graphs similar to the 2D, except it's going to be pushed into 3D, and what we're looking at is essentially the sunburst and the spider graph, as we will see in a moment. What we can do is have a quick overview of some of the demonstrated clear visualizations that have been produced historically to show the examples in clarification mode in straight positioning. The sunburst looks like this, and we take this to the third dimension under the patent and the licensing agreements. So we've done that, and we go straight to the house price index model and have a look at how that interacts with the system from a point of view of its full interaction. So what we have here is the United States with 9 regions, and each region has its state over a period of 30, 40 years. And we look at the house price index relative to that. Everything is interactive. The timeline we've described. Below that is the spatial aspect of the Rose model and the interaction between the Rose model on the right and the grid in three-dimensional format on the left in circle mode rather than the hexagonal mode, because there are 9 elements. And of course, we've got the data sheet, which is active all the time. And we can go on that and see how that interacts, as you can see. And the top here is your designated descriptor, both in time and space and in terms of values. From that, we push forward and we look at the hexagonal grid based on a hex. And we look at that and we see this uniqueness in terms of its layout, its grid structure. We've already described that it is certainly unique in terms of the patent granted to us in terms of the layout visualization. As you can see, there's 1 through 6 in the center nodes. And its children. From this, we can see the primary and the secondary parent-child relationships and their interplay, and then the node level, which is much, in my interpretation, as a Merkle tree under blockchain technology without the hashing of the totals. This is automatic accumulations from the outer level nodes to the inner level branch to the center core of the system itself. Once again, we come back to the system. We've seen it in 3 dimensions. We're going to quickly get a view of this because I think it's important. And we're going to bring it down to just 3 dimensions here and then rebuild it. And here we can see very clearly in the 3 dimensions what it looks like. There's the main parent-child relationship. And once again, we have a holistic view of what that looks like. So with that in mind, let's apply that to a set of data sets. The first one that we're going to look at is looking at it from the point of view of scoring. Uh, Scoring could be scores, could be university graduations, could be school. But as you can see, it's totally interactive, and we have switched the time element into elements of um, instances rather than time. As you can see, there are approximately 100 line items, and these could be students. In this particular case, could be patients or whatever the case is. And the data, as you can see, is in percentage format. And clearly, you're looking for subpar and excelling students, those that are in an average state relative to that will only be shown as basic levels. We take this concept and we now look at the concept of a statistical review of survey data and KPI data. To do this, we have to change the scale. Traditionally, a survey is 1 through 5 or 0 through 10, and KPIs are uh, really quite complex in that their divisor is, or the figure that it's um, uh, divided by, is invariably varies from um, price earnings ratios to debt equity to sales over inventory. And we have all these divergent things. So we have to find a way to normalize that said data. The way that we do that is we do the scale instead of as described 1 through 5 and 0 to 10. We shift it -2 to +2 with 0 as the median. And we're going to look at that immediately. And we can immediately see from that the first and second degree standard deviations, which are the outliers, which is what we're trying to find in the first place, is how do we get those outliers. And here we immediately can do that. This is a analysis of employee responses to a survey on over 4 years, and there are 200 individuals in this particular review. And we take it one stage further again, same data, and we look at it from the standpoint, this is called the single slice mode of the rows. So left and right are in this case identical, other than the fact that one is spot time and the other is data over time with the same models implicit in both. And as you can see, if I graduate the data down, so it changes. The object here is to get a fingerprint. With that fingerprint in place, what we have is normal versus abnormal or versus superior results. So you can have a negative inference and a positive. As you can see, there's an outer and an inner band of work balance is a negative there, and corporation benefits indicate a great need or preference for. And then we take that same data and we now index it and drill it down. And what we're seeing here is the rows is indexed. The data field is the same as two shots ago. And what we have is the average data represented on the right with the actual data on the left. So these are averages, and according to the average, we'll get a scope. This can be seen, I'll take this one stage further and take it to its index. So we're going to go here and we're going to do a single slice on this. And then we're going to use the time bar to shift it. And from here, we can see both on the left and the right how the data is changing and giving us a representation of that data over time to make a positive answer for the fingerprint. I'll just stop it there and reset it and let it do its thing. While it's doing its thing, I'm going to shift again and look at the same data from the helix model. So in this case here, in the helix model, you're able to see the data being varied. And this data, coincidentally, was generated to produce a normalized pattern utilizing ChatGPT as its developer and engine to clean up the data, normalize the data, and then we just brought it in manually. Take another shot of it, and now what we're looking at is actually the USA's GDP in numerical format. So we've switched completely from a unstructured data to structured data, and what we're looking at is a period of 1990 to 2018, and this represents the USA's GDP per annum, and it's changed year upon year. And it's important because we're going to see this as a comparative figure later on. We now go to the region of the USA. We now go further and get a close approximation of the world in terms of the said regions. There's 6 regions, and it goes even deeper than that, getting an understanding of what it really looks like. And the data here per country, as you can see, is very detailed, and you can actually see the granularity of the data and the fact that it's almost tactile, that you can literally touch that data and get a sense of it. Each is a line graph giving you an indication of where we were at. With that, we move now to taking that data and on a normalized plane. This is after ChatGPT has had its time taking the data and setting up a normalized formation of that data. As you can see, the two are ubiquitous, they're the same. And this one is in terms of percentages relative to the node. And from that, we are able to now get an inkling of what that actually looks like on a holistic basis. We quickly switch to that relative to China. And I said previously, if I can find it very rapidly, if you compare the United States version to that, one would see the dramatic comparison between the two. There's China, and only because I know my way around this thing a little bit. Somewhere here we have the United States, that's Canada, there's the USA, so we'll see the USA, and there's the USA in comparison to that China model. And there is a dramatic comparative between the two. China is there, and the increase certainly accounts for that. Switching out now and changing planes to even a more complex version of data analysis. These are 17 high calibrated changes to the projected national debt of the United States. We're talking about 34 trillion initially, graduating possibly to 65 trillion. This is what Dodge is about, trying to bring down this national debt. I'm sure they'd love to see the comparison and what the different options would bring. There'll be one more coming in, which would be the Dodge option of reduction, which we don't have to display, but essentially we're here at 2021, we can get to 25, and that's where we're sitting. And these are forward analysis and projections as a consequence of that. The system itself is extremely simple, as mentioned. There's a flat screen of the system. Within that, we have a ability to have a total quick start guide for taking you through all aspects so you can do your own models. And for that, you'd either bring down an Excel file, open up an Excel file, or alternatively, if you had a JSON version of that, you do it through the JSON library and bring it down through the JSON library. So with that said, in this case, we have an open select version of various data. Here's a complex set of the United States in terms of its entire balance sheet. And we can see that the entirety of its balance sheet, you can't see the exactness of the number because of the seismic nature of it, but we just can enhance that. This is the last thing that I'm doing, so bear with me. And in node mode here, we'll get a very clear representation of how deep that data really does go and get a deep dive and assessment of it. As you can see, there's the line graphs. You can choose any item, and we could, for that matter, just drill down one more time, see that section in its layer. There's its parent, parent, and the node level. And we can drill at that level and get an indication. Obviously, going backwards, we get its cluster, and from that we can get to its main section that it deals with in terms of that portion of the balance sheet and go all the way back to what it represented. So once again, before your eyes, it has got a powerful tool that it wants to share. It can be seen easily through the YouTube podcast link. Happy to provide that. And as I said, the data is extremely simple to bring in and view. There it is. You just open it up and it's there for all to see. Once again, I want to thank you from before your eyes in terms of the ability of the system. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Speak to you soon.